Welcome back. We're going to start this episode right where we finished off with the last one by continuing the welding of the manifold. Now that the manifold's all welded up, it'll be really tempting to go ahead and start assembling this and then fitting it to the car. However, there are a few little jobs I need to do on this first before we do that. First is I want to round off some of the corners on this adapter plate. When this is fitted to the car, I have to get my hands behind the back of it to get the accelerator cable on. I really like to do that without slicing my wrists open on some sharp corners. Next, the opening in the adapter plate and the opening in the Toyota manifold don't perfectly line up. Now that's not a mistake, that was known about when I designed this adapter plate. Fortunately, there's some material left in the bottom there that I can die grind out. And finally, I need to grind a little bit of clearance on the edge here of the manifold to allow one of the throttle body bolts to come through properly and tighten up. So, with that being said, let's scribe around the inside here and attack it with a die grinder. When I said there was only a couple of little jobs left to do, I might have lied. Despite its size, the manifold itself is actually quite light. Contrary to the throttle body, which, believe it or not, actually has a considerable bit of weight in it. Now, this is something that I think Nissan was fully aware of, because on the underside of the original manifold, there was this support bracket. Obviously this isn't going to fit though, because we built a new manifold, so I think you can all see where this is going. We've got to remake this. The manifold support bracket started off as a 1-inch wide strip of steel. This picked up on an existing boss that was on the Starlet manifold and was used to hold a second one that I had to create in place as it was welded. During the lunch break at work, I drilled and tapped the centre of a piece of aluminium bar to create the second boss that was required. The tapped aluminium bar was trimmed to length and shaped to fit the curve of the runner of the inlet manifold. It could then be held in place by the strip of steel while it was welded in place. I'm going to leave building the rest of the manifold support bracket until a later date, preferably when I've got the engine out of the car and I've got better access to the back of it. For the time being, we're going to start looking at routing the throttle cable. The Micra's throttle cable, originally in the car, came into this side of the throttle body, looped round, and came into this support bracket, which held it in place, and then picked up on the throttle body quadrant, which is there. When this is mounted to the Mini, the throttle cable needs to come in from the opposite side. Fortunately, Toyota were quite nice and left us some bosses cast into the manifold, one of which has already been drilled and tapped out, so I'm going to simply drill and tap the other one out and make a bracket that comes off of that. The other side problem I've got is the throttle body quadrant itself. Ideally, this needs to be in a position like so when it's at rest, so this is going to take some modification. I am lucky, however, though, that the throw on this and the throw on the Mini pedal are correct to get full opening of the throttle body, so we don't have to go messing around with changing diameters of this and building complete custom ones. So let's get this apart and get with the modifying of parts. due to the reorientation of the throttle body quadrant, a little clearance was required, so out came the die grinder again. And finally, a lick of paint. I think that small throttle cable bracket is the last bit of fabrication that needs to be done to the inlet manifold before it all goes back in the car. So next thing to do is assemble all this and then we can refit it. The only issue I have had though is I can't get the necessary Nissan Micro throttle body to custom adapter to Toyota Starlet gaskets from any of the local auto factories around here. Whenever they ask me my registration, for some reason they seem to say I have an A series engine fitted. Well, just means we're making some. I have to say the new punches I bought have certainly earned their keep. Not only are they good for making cardboard templates, they come in real handy when making gaskets too. Now some of these bolts go inside of the manifold, some go on the outside, so some need to be thread sealed and some just need to be thread locked. We also need a little bit of the blue gasket sealant around the heads to where the mating surfaces and the countersunks try and help them with the throttle body seal and the next part. This is the original fuel rail with the original ejectors, which work perfectly, so this is going back in. With the fuel rail mounted, I could refit the micro's vacuum hose linking the pressure regulator to an existing port on the back of the Throttle manifold. So that's the manifold all assembled, so this can now go back on the car. I fitted a small plug to a port on the throttle body in order to block it off. I didn't weld this up as I would have liked to have done so as not to damage any of the seals in the throttle body. And finally fitting the necessary water pipes. We're fast approaching the end of the Inlet Manifold Odyssey and we've only a couple of jobs left to do. So we're going to have a look at the throttle cable. This is the micro throttle cable and this is the one we're going to use. It's longer than we need it to be, which is a good thing because that means we can shorten it. However, before I just go cutting an end off and working out how long to make it, it's worth taking a few minutes to consider which end is going to be easier to modify. And by looking at it, this end is probably going to be the easier one. The outer part of the cable will also need to be modified. However, this end is already set up for the bracket that we made a few minutes ago that's bolted to the back of the inlet manifold, so we'll probably shorten this end.
What you see here is me modifying the existing crimp on the end of the micro throttle cable. The idea was to only cut through the crimp itself and not the cable underneath, hence why I kept turning it and was going very slowly with the junior hacksaw. This allowed me to remove a section of the crimp, which would then allow what was left of it to fit into the Mini's accelerator pedal.
We drill the hole out in that little clip, that's going to go on properly, and we're in business. With the clip modified and this end slightly tweaked so it will fit the Mini pedal, I'm now confident enough to do this. As he says, and can't get through it. After much faffing around, I figured out the length that I need to cut the cable down to, or rather the outer sleeving. The only thing is I've set it up from this end down to these pencil marks here. This now needs to be transferred and measured from the nuts on this end to the position I need to cut it. We can fit this now to the car. The excess of this cable I'll cut off when it's all fitted.
In order to keep a smooth bend in the throttle cable, I used a P-clip that I modified and bolted into an existing hole on the back of the inlet manifold.
I've only got one 13mm open-ended spanner.
To complete the throttle cable install, I fitted an adjustable cable end. Fun fact, I actually made my own stainless steel one. Yeah, you can buy them for just a couple of quid, but when you have a lunch break and an industrial workshop at your disposal, why not?
We're not quite done with the inlet manifold just yet. Due to the repositioning of the throttle body and the air filter that is attached to it, we now need to look at modifying the crank breather system. Now, when an engine runs, the air volume inside will change, and due to blow by past the piston rings, you get combustion gases in places that really you didn't want them. There isn't really a way of avoiding that. Unfortunately, it's just an inherent part of modern engines that use piston rings. The dirty air is controlled by the PCV, which feeds back into the manifold. We've already addressed that. That just requires a new pipe and fitting on the Toyota manifold. Not only do you need to let gases out, you actually need to let air back in to keep pressures equalised, otherwise you can end up in a situation where you'd end up with a vacuum. Now, on most OEM cars and on the Micra as well, it used to draw air in through a air filter box, and that had a separate pipe coming off of it that went into a fitting down here on the cam cover. As I say, due to the air filter we're using, this no longer connects to it. Fortunately, the aftermarket comes to our aid with this little fella, which is a crankcase breather filter. The only problem is, this won't directly bolt onto that pipe because some idiot put a throttle body in the way. Ah well, here we go again.
But I never really knew that it was over, till the quiet and the echoes became colder. And I never really knew that it was over, till the quiet it's yours to leave, but
Don't worry, a new rocker cover gasket will be fitted upon final assembly.
and I'll try to carry on again, but I never really knew that it was over.
That's it for this episode. Hope you've enjoyed it. Come back next time when you watch me tackle another task on the list of things to do to get this car one step closer to being on the road. If you've liked the video, then please click the like button below, and if you want to keep up to date with the build, you can follow the link in the description below to my build thread on the mini forum, or please subscribe to my channel. Again, thanks for watching.
Wah, 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 wah. Wah, 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 wah.